really offers that opportunity. And I think, your story really points out how, rather than being seen as these completely different things or having a sort of
Yes.
hierarchical relationship, writing pedagogy and what we think of as, say, content or disciplinary pedagogy, they really go hand in hand. And to,
Yes, definitely.
excel at one, or even to be proficient in one, you need to be grounded and trained in the other, because writing is how we think through our material, how we frame our material, how we get interested in our material. And on the other hand, writing does not exist in a vacuum. It has to be constantly informed by the conversations we have, by the and by the work that we're exposed to, and that we actually engage with. So thanks a lot for that, Nancy. And I think this discussion has thrown up some really interesting questions, and I'd love now to open up this session to the audience to ask. I know some questions have already come in the chat box. Please feel free to send more, whether a general question or targeted to a particular panelist here. Please, the floor is open to all of you. And Ananya, we've received some. I was
Yeah,
wondering.
I can sum up the questions that are here already, and I'll
Yes,
just do it together. So take it together and answer whichever part you like.
that would be great.
There was one question right after Subi stopped speaking about, and Subi mentioned that students hesitate to communicate. So so the question about hesitation to communicate, I think both oral and written, and we do know students. We've all encountered hesitation. So question was, why do you think they hesitate? If you've met it, how you might have explained it to yourself, how you understand it. There's another question from someone who wants to know if there is actual improvement. And I think this is especially also for Shreya. And the peer tutoring program where the age group is the same, where is there improvement there? Do students, what about dynamics between students? Does that actually get in the way instead of helping? So I think that kind of a question addressing that. And Sukanya, I think, wants to share an experience about tutoring or something related. So there are these three things that we could start off with and take any other questions anyone else wants to ask.
I think that sounds great. So the first question was on the sort of hesitation that
Yes.
students feel, right? Would any of you like to jump in here and maybe address that? I know that's certainly a problem that we have at some point all faced with our duties. So if you could give a sense of how you feel, Ela, Shachi, Ela.
Shachi, go ahead. I can go after you. Okay. So I think the hesitation that I've encountered has always also been quite explicit in terms of, I mean, it's taken some time for students to be willing to tell me these things. But they do say, I mean, that they keep telling me that I do need to recognize the kind of pressure they experience being in a primarily English language university surrounded by people who have grown up speaking the language or who have a lot of cultural capital that they don't have. And that hesitation is and because of which that hesitation comes in a lot. But I think that it's also, I think one of the jobs, as at least the way that I see the job of the tutor, is also to sort of deal with that hesitation in a way that allows them to also realize that I mean that they have something to say, right? And in either that always is the case. And that it's also possible that they have something to say simply because of the very unique experiences that they have had. So I think that, so in terms of Nancy's story, I think it's always been useful for me that way to find students, find things that students are interested in writing about or talking about. With one student, for me, it was film, and that was where we broke the kind of distance that we had, and she now writes like film blogs for fun. So I think that, and the fact that she does it for fun, I think, is what really matters to me, is that it has nothing to do with her economics class at all. But the other thing is that I found that the tool that I really use is to have students write about their experiences. whatever it might be. So I usually just give them a writing prompt and then have them think about how they might want to write about something that they've been through, something that that reminds them of home, whatever it might be. And that always throws up, I mean, also to some degree helps me understand the background that they're coming from, as well as then opens up a space for a conversation with them about the language, about I mean, things that they might have to say based on the experiences that they've had. So how they respond to a text based on these experiences, and how that is in itself valuable, a valuable place to start responding to something from. So yeah, I mean, that's what yeah.
Shreya, would you like to take the question about dynamics between peer tutors and students, and if you felt you saw any improvement by the end of the term?
Yeah, so I think here there was like peer tutors came off, like there was students came into the tutoring sessions believing we could help them because this was a tutoring program specifically for the writing and oral communication course. And since it's a foundational course, it's something that we went through in our first year, and now they are going through it themselves. So knowing that we went through the course and survived it and made it out and are now volunteering to tutor it to them is something that gave them some measure of confidence that we could indeed help them. And then I think it kind of, so one of the most important parts of writing academic papers is peer reviewing. And that's something that CREA has a focus on in the classes itself. Peer reviewing is a part of every paper that we all write. So tutoring became a way to the tutors, as tutors, we were sounding boards for them when they were trying to develop their arguments. We became like kind of like a filter through which they would pass their ideas, and only the ones that were like, you know, logical, sensible, valuable, and original would come out of the other side. And it kind of helped them write papers that were insightful and incredibly analytical, and it definitely, like, it was their own thinking, but we helped them, we helped show them the way to writing it in a way that would convey their thoughts to the professor. And I think, so I reached out to my other student tutors before this conference to see what their insights were. And I think it's a unanimous agreement that we have, that all of the students that we tutored showed progress by the end of the course, that they showed improvements in their writing. And we could see the results of the exercises we were doing and the explanations we were giving them and all the feedback and things like that. And it was coming out in their writing. So yeah, I think there was definite growth for all of us.
Thank you so much, Shreya, for that. May I invite Sukanya, if you're still here, to share your experience, and then Vasudha has a question. We'll ask her to ask that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to all of you that's sharing a experience with having a beautiful, with having glorifying with elegant language and literature. I'm a student actually. I'm pursuing my MA in Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Actually, I'm side by side. I'm tutoring to the small students. I take a tuition. So I wanted to share something with you. While we are tutoring something with the small students, like first to fourth, fifth standard students, that is totally different. Having their mentality, their experience is totally different. We have to go with their flow.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're making a really important point, Sukanya, that I think part of the challenge of tutoring also is to understand the different places that our tutees might be coming from, right? And I think that's really important. That's, I think, a challenge that all people who are both teaching and tutoring face. Thank you so much for your experience. Vasudha, you have a very mindful question. You are asking tutors, what, why don't you ask the question yourself?
Yeah, I put a question in the chat as the conversation was proceeding, and it occurred to me, but I think it came out of a slightly larger place, and seeing Madhura's question in the chat has inspired me to ask it, which is, how do institutions, the institutions in which you are, see the work that you do? What kind of resources do they provide for you to actually do that successfully? What is the understanding of the role that you have, especially since from what you're sharing, a lot of you are going, above and beyond working hours, the kind of sort of emotional effort that goes into this kind of work. You're talking about people coming to you in states of worry and anxiety and confusion, and you not only have to help them with the obvious task, which is the paper or the SOP or whatever, but kind of get them to put them in a place where actually that work you do will be helpful. So to reach out in some way. So that's not easy. So what kind of, I started by asking, what do instructors need to do to actually make it possible for you to do the task you're doing? But I think the larger question is, what do institutions need to do, and how do you think institutions see the work that you're doing, and what do they need to do, specifically instructors, since I am one? So that I would really like to know. Yeah.
Okay, I can start by answering that question, and it's a really important question, Vasudha. Thank you for asking it. And for me, it kind of got pronounced, and it relates to what Sachi was saying in the beginning, because I came from the classroom experience, I came from the teaching experience, and then coming to tutoring, just it took me a while to first understand how do learners look at us, and what is their sort of idea about the kind of work we do. And I realized that as you know word of mouth is like a great thing that works with with learners. And for me it happened so that all these students applying abroad for their graduate or master's studies heard that, okay, Nancy is doing a great job with SOP, so let's all go to her. And that I didn't know how to take it, okay, because initially I was like, okay, great, I maybe I'll finally learn how to write one, while teaching all these learners how to write an SOP. But eventually I realized that, okay, so this is who I am for them, someone who would help them with their SOP. And none of them wrote back to me telling me what their results are. And I have mixed emotions about that, because a few of them I worked for a very long time. I worked with them for like 1.5, 2 months, and so that was also that is a question. And Madhura's comment, makes so much sense to me, because I think this is, and today all of us are, even the panel, except Samir, we are all women from our particular centers. And how is that really where is gender playing this role? Because again, theory making and talking about theory, I mean, at Ashoka, at Ashoka, like theory is taught left, right, and center to students. And I feel that we are doing the real job of breaking it, for students, and demystifying it, and, really helping them overcome their intimidation when they're reading Plato in their first semester without having any experience of having read any kind of philosophy. So it requires so much labor, and it really sort of takes because to be, I mean, to help a student with Plato, I have to go back and brush my Plato also many a times, right? It just isn't that I will randomly say anything and everything I want. And in that sense, again, I think at Ashoka, there's a weird, like, I've again never visited the campus because I started working only in September 2020, but I know my peers from Delhi School who work as teaching fellows and who work in the Introduction to Critical Thinking program. And the way they think, the way our peers think about us is something that is a cause of concern for me. You know, the way, you know, people maybe with same education
Yeah.
who might be teaching in colleges, universities, you know, especially Delhi University colleges. That's the group I am located in. You know, the way they look at us is something, you know, that makes me really think, because at the same time they will be complaining about how their students write so badly,
Yeah.
right? Without realizing that if, you know, 5 students at Ashoka are submitting assignments which are getting an A or a B plus, probably has something to do with the writing center, you know. And they would complain that, oh, look at this, Ashoka University's students are getting published in Scroll, for example, or, you know, YF students are writing in the Wire. What is happening? They keep rejecting my pitches. And I'm like, yeah, because they come to a few of us before something.
Kind of
You know,
help.
it's as simple as having a second pair of eyes, reading, you know, what you're going to submit. And so there's this sort of politics going on in the wider world. And even at Ashoka, we are not categorized as teaching staff. We are just staff. So you know, so that also makes you think that what is your role here? And as I said, that, you know, we are even we're managing stress for students many a times, but being really imperfect at it. You know, I am not trained to manage or like even give advice. I mean, I feel so pressured when I have to give advice on, you know, on various things. And but in that moment, how do you distance yourself from students? So
Absolutely. There's such a great need for, you know, more directed training for this, not just for writing tutors as separate, but teachers as well. And I think, you know, the great thing is that, especially in the sort of private universities that have come up, there is this focus on academic writing. I think Shachi at OP Jindal also, right? The idea of academic writing coming in that concern. If you could, again, like weigh in on this question that we're discussing.
Thanks, Amir. So I just want to, like, all of the questions we've had, right? It brings me back to that one question that I think I came to the session with also, which is that how are institutional sort of restrictions and practices shaping our pedagogy, right? And this is not just at the level of the universities we are working in, but also in school and whatever training our students have undergone. So I'm sure all of you resonate that one element of doing even as a writing instructor, right, one of the main things that I have to take on as a task is to sort of peel off these layers of, you know, consolidated ideas about writing that students come with. I do not see most instructors in disciplinary subjects looking at writing as an element of their subject at all. And yet the exams are written, yet the essays are written, and that level of thinking is expected there. So this, you know, this sort of the place of writing within institutional design, I think we need to have more conversations about that overall. And only once those conversations do start slowly, you know, we can delayer them, is when we can manage to make this sort of an impact that we are seeking to make, right? Without writing tutors or instructors feeling like lesser than their scientific or social scientific counterparts. Because I think everybody is coming from some amount of disciplinary training, and everybody is doing well also in their research and their subjects. And yet at this place, how come there seems to be this common resonance of this doubt of our own place within the university structure, within you know, our faculty cohort, and also then in the eyes of the student. And I think our location in that design, both school and university level, is really determinant of that. So that would be something that I will take back to reflect also, because it seems to be something that is across centers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for those of you who aren't on the chat, Nancy and Shashi to some extent also were responding to, in terms of Madhura's contribution, is she was talking about a paper that she read called Real Men Don't Do Writing Centers, and about how there's this sort of danger of there being a gender division between masculinized spaces of content teaching and theory, and feminized spaces of tutoring, handholding, and skill.
And I think the pedagogy of care really is something that we can extrapolate to this, right? That who is in a caregiving duty, and why is teaching writing a caregiving duty?
Absolutely.
a disciplinary teacher is absolutely accepted, even if they are, almost curt or almost insensitive towards the kind of requirements they have from your subject.
Definitely, that kind of old university don or savant who can get away with anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we as writing people who are involved in writing pedagogy work in a very different space. And the question of to what extent is a sort of gendered notion of that also to play in the kind of a hierarchy between, say, tutoring and teaching and academic writing pedagogy and other kinds of pedagogy. So we have only about 5 minutes left. So
Samir, if you don't mind my interrupting, I mean, this has been an absolutely stunning discussion. I think the best so far we've had, the best session of the conference we've had so far. I think I can say that really, truly, honestly. I noticed that both Madhura and Shonali are here. Shonali, of course, is the APU writing director type person, and there's Madhura as well. Could you both reflect? I mean, you are the people who set this tutoring in place, and you've trained your tutors. Much of what they are thinking and working with are conversations you have with them. Would you mind stepping in just for these last few minutes and share your insights on this conversation? But anything else as Writing Center heads, if you have anything to share with us, it would be really useful, I think, at this point.
Absolutely.
Sure. So I've been paying attention to the whole question of the gender.
Shonali, we can't hear you very well. Could you speak up, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better. Yeah.
Better? All right. So I agree that the concern about the gendered writing space is a genuine concern, because and even when I'm recruiting tutors, I'm looking to sort of change that balance a bit and see whether there are more men we can hire as tutors. Though I will say that at APU, the divide between the caring tutoring space and the space of the classroom, which I mean, someone just said that the disciplinary teachers, can be curt or can be, that divide is a little less extreme, or I'd say I don't see that much of a divide at APU, partly because at APU there's a very strong culture of pastoral care of students. Each of us, though, I mean, even if we're, I mean, and I have two roles to play. I do teach literature as well as I teach in the common curriculum, and I head the writing center. So I really have a view of all three of these, in these capacities. And we all faculty at APU also have mentees, and we're expected to be with these mentees for the 3 years that they are on camp, that they are in our program. So we have 10 to 12 mentees each. And so I wouldn't say, I mean, we're encouraged to think of them in the same care terms as, we would, as for example, Nancy was talking about for tutors thinking about their students. So I'd say that the divide is less visible. I'm less conscious of that divide here than I think in any other university. Certainly, Ananya will join me at Rutgers when we were graduate students, doing our PhDs there. There was no question of the teacher being a caring person, the faculty person being caring. He or she came, lectured and went. And if there were a caring person, that was the exception to the rule, But and nor were tutors particularly expected to be caring. They were expected to do their job. It was a whole different setup. But I think that the private universities in India, I don't know. I mean, am I wrong in thinking that this idea of pastoral care is something that APU has in common with others, or is it something that APU that is exclusive to it? I don't know. You tell me.
I think we are out of time, so we won't be able to take up this very, very interesting point that Shonali is raising. And in fact, Madhura and I have been working on this concept of pedagogy of care, how to make it work from SNU, actually. We started there at Jindal, at Triya. Sumi talked about how her how the work that we are doing at the Writing Center is influencing how other teachers are teaching their discipline courses, being more mindful. So we do see that, and this may have something to do, Shonali, with numbers. Central universities, state universities, the numbers of students you have in your classes and what care takes more than anything else is time, right? And attention to people. And central universities, state universities, big colleges don't allow for that. So we can't, it's 1:30, we have to, but I'm glad that we're ending on this point. Madhura didn't get a chance to speak, but we did take up one of her points. And it's really great that we're ending with a sense of, oh, but there is so much more to talk about. We haven't attended to this, that, or the other. And I'd rather end on this note than, oh, everything is done, right? So this is, I think I'm not wrong to say that this is probably the first such session among all the universities that have begun to offer tutoring. A conversation between tutors, I don't know, has happened before. In Kriya, we've only just started tutoring, last term. So this is wonderful. And I want to let Samir finish the session, but I do want to say like a really, really heartfelt thank you to all the tutors and to Samir. This was absolutely beautiful. Even for me, like I've been doing this now the last 10 years, right? So I think this is the most, and I was saying that this is the most special session that we're organizing, but it's in practice, it's turned out to be that. And I'm patting myself on the back for it, but I'm patting myself on the back because you guys are absolutely, absolutely amazing. And I'm glad we got to touch upon the difficult issues. And we are hoping, we'll be able to think through and work with that. Samir, please go ahead and close the session.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ananya. And thank you to everyone who really made this panel possible. Ela, Shreya, Nancy, Shachi, Sumitra, Ananya, of course. Thank you to Shonali for speaking. Thank you for Sukanya for sharing her experience, to Madhura, and to everyone who, contributed in the chat. We've got some amazing questions, some amazing comments. And like I mentioned, the discussion I had with tutors before we met this, we could honestly just talk about this for hours and hours, and we wouldn't be able to cover everything that is fascinating about tutoring. But unfortunately, we do have to end it here. I invite everyone to please come and attend our next session as well, which is a paper panel. And thank you all for attending. And thank you, everyone, for your really enlightening comments and conversation.
Thanks, Samir and Ananya, for inviting us. It was really enriching for all of us, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.